It's so sick. I don't know what that was, but welcome back, all you Biconics wrestling nerds out there, and welcome to not a special edition because this the regular Table for Two plus You review team is back to review another exciting episode of Impact Wrestling. But we are here to review the IWFP special for Impact, where it is nothing but comedic wrestling, and all of your favorite Impact wrestlers embody very different characters in like an 80s styles theme show. And listen, I knew what I was getting into because it's not my first time watching one of these specials, but I look forward to it every year because of the campiness and the fun that happens with all this. And what made me even more excited is that my co-host, Will, this was his first time and being introduced to Impact IWFP episodes. Now, I'm not trying to say you're old, but...
It's okay. I'm old. It's all right.
Well, no, because, like, this episode that we're about to review is very reminiscent of like the peak of 80s style wrestling, from the production to the characters to even some of the implications going on, because like they didn't say the exact words, but like the main event had them fighting the Cold War basically.
Yep. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, because back in the 80s we had those Russian characters. There was a tag team, if I'm not mistaken. They're escaping me now, but there was what were their names? That's gonna drive me crazy. Oh man. But anyway, yeah, there was all sorts of these sort of dare I say trope type things happening. Because, Cold War was going on, so the Bolsheviks, that's what they were called. They were Bolsheviks. I was like, God, it was something very Russian. And, yeah, Cold War was happening, so of course, we're going to make fun of it. It's like, we're going to show that. And, of course, they, a lot of them got their butts whooped. Because they were the heels, obviously, and it's funny the way that it was sort of presented in this episode. It's very spoofed, but it was sort of like that. It was almost like the Russian boxer from Rocky. The whole "I will break you."
Drago, Ivan Drago.
Yeah, so it's it was very much like that. Truly in the 1980s, it was a lot of stuff. That's why I laughed through most of this, because a lot of stuff that happened in this episode, I literally could be like, I've seen that happen in like 80s wrestling. I've seen this happen in 80s wrestling, and so it's just really, really funny. I just loved it.
I do too. And before we proceed, something I forgot to mention. As you can tell, our other co-host Andrew unfortunately could not be here with us this week, but that is okay because he's really excited to come back as we'll get into it towards the end, the go-home show before Final Resolution, but it's not really a go-home show because we were told what matches we were going to see next week. Which I'm excited for, but we'll talk about it when we get to the end. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So after the opening segment, first and foremost, I want to shout out our commentary team for the night. We have specifically Alex Shelley as the Poindexter Professor was the funniest thing that I have seen, and I forgot that this was his character for the whole, during these shows, man. He's just like, actually, the whole entire night, and
oh my God,
they were so good. I freaking love them so much.
Before we get into it, I agree. These alternate characters that they play, it was so refreshing. to, and I've said this before, like when we went to the UK and and that sort of thing was happening. It's so refreshing to kind of see them outside of their element and the NXT element, or I'm sorry, not NXT. Sorry, I'm the wrong one. Impact element, because we can see them as human beings, basically. So we see them come in, and at first I didn't know what to expect. So I was like, oh, okay, is this just going to be like, like a throwaway sort of thing? It's like, oh, look, we're going to do something cutesy, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm not really big into the spoofy type, whatever. But, and I didn't really know a lot about it, except for what Mikey had told me. And I was like, oh, okay. Obviously I'm going to watch it and do what I need to do. But I went into it so seriously, even though everyone's like, oh no, it's like this hilarious thing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know anything about it. So I'm going to go into it seriously. And I did. And I began laughing from the very beginning. And I was like, what is happening right now? And then all these alternate characters came in. And so I saw the performers in a different light during this, again, like we saw them when they went to the UK and things like that. You see them in such a different light, and it's so refreshing that, and it's like you're watching them just have fun. I mean, even the fights were great. I mean, some of them, they weren't stellar fights like you would see in the regular episodes, but they were fun. And the reason that I enjoyed them is because the wrestlers were having fun. And there's so, the energy, and then coming from a theater standpoint, the energy is so different when for instance, when we have a quote unquote, what we call a fun run of our show, where it's like, hey, everyone act like it's a soap opera, play like a soap opera, and they go and they get into it, and you see these alternate characters begin to establish, and they just have fun, and it's just it's just truly enjoying to watch. And this episode was truly enjoying to watch, and I didn't even care that it has nothing to do with storylines. I did not give a shit. I literally was like, this is so fun. And I was telling Mikey earlier as well, I was like, I recommend, and I'm just, hello out there, you folks in Impact Wrestling. You should do this as a charity show. Like, raise some money with this, because this would do it. Oh my God. This would do it. Coming in and doing these fantastic, fun, and wherever you're performing them, bring in local talent so that you can get that local market and just have fun. Because, God, it was a blast. It made me want to be there. I was like, God, I wish I was in that audience just to be there. So anyway, so to our first. Go, you do your thing. Sorry.
I love that you love this so much, because here at Table for Two Plus You, we are reviewing the regular episodes of Impact, and honestly, I'm okay, because we have a pay-per-view next week, but I don't mind, because that final pay-per-view just looks to also just be matches to have fun, because the real work is going to begin at Hard to Kill, because that's when all those matches are going to matter, because that's how we're going to set up the rest of 2024. But let's start with our opening match, our singles match for this evening. Also, shout out to our backstage producer turned in-ring announcer / interviewer for in the arena area. God, I also love that they just walked through the black curtain. I'm like, oh yeah, this reminds me of when the wrestling companies, like the small time, would come to my local high school gym. I was like, I loved it so much. But our first match saw Kamikaze, pending problematic things that came from it. One thing I loved is that they knew they were being problematic, but then again, this was also the era of 80s wrestling where they could get away with being problematic.
Yep.
So we had Kamikaze taking on Rapid Delivery Pete. So it was Speedball Mike Bailey, who is Kamikaze, taking on Rich Swann, who is playing Rapid Delivery Pete. I love God, Rich Swann killed it here. I was just like, Rapid Delivery Pete is such a stupid character, but the crowd was behind him so much.
Yeah, because he said, if I win, I'll give you free pizza.
And who doesn't love free pizza? But also, shout out to Mike Bailey as Kamikaze. He came out looking like he belonged in Beverly Hills Ninjas. I was like, what is this?
That was so fun. You know what the funny thing about this, again, is that it's spoofing that sort of mid to late 80s, or, early to mid 80s, like WWF, World Wrestling Federation type characters. And so Kamikaze, again, yes, super problematic today, but especially considering it's not no one of Asian descent underneath the mask. So he did, yes. But was 80s wrestling problematic? Yes, in today's standards. But back then, absolutely not. Everybody was basically a target. And so, but what I love about it is how absolutely like dime store Halloween costumes these costumes were. Which is exactly kind of what it was in the 80s, guys. I'm not even kidding you. If you're like, well, I wasn't even born
before Amazon was a thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. I found this in my grandmother's closet. It's literally that sort of thing. And back in the day, there were no Jumbotrons and, LED screens. And no, they literally came from behind a curtain. It was like, here's soup. Parts the curtain and comes out. It's literally, I watched so many, like WWF type matches because back then they would have like bleachers, like almost, and they would come from behind the bleachers. There weren't even curtains sometimes. So it was this, and again, I was telling Mikey before we started filming that I loved how it was filmed because it had that 1980s quality, sort of film quality to it. It felt live, but because in today's thing we put so many filters on everything, and but this was like you were standing in the building with them, and it was great. And I absolutely, this was like my little kid heart dream come true to watch these sort of like 1980s tropes happening right before our eyes. So yeah, this first match was fun for me because of the cheesiness. Truly, the whole fast delivery.
The whole thing was camp.
It was a total something that you would have found in the 80s. Truly was. Those sort of stupid names they would come up with. It was like gimmicks. You got to have a gimmick. That was the thing.
I loved it. This first match was a lot of fun, of course. Speedball Mike Bailey does have a background in martial arts and jiu-jitsu, so he put that on display. I love the overselling of his movements, like he's a ninja, like doing ninja poses and everything. I was just like, Mike Bailey, this is why you're like one of my favorite people. Like, honestly, I love him so much. And then Rich Swann just being a pizza delivery guy is also a lot of fun too. And going to what you stated about like the quality of like the aesthetic of it being filmed like from the 80s and from the graphics wise to the graininess of it. I also love that in a weird way, because I pick up on the weirdest things, like the way that they shot the match in terms of like with all the participants in the ring. It was just one big overhead static shot, like static like footage. It wasn't dynamic. It wasn't moving around. Like, it was just the best thing ever. Oh, for sure. You're also muted.
I was going to say there weren't multiple cameras. If I'm not mistaken, there were like 3 or 4 static cameras that would be up, basically up, to film the match, and they would just pop back and forth between them. And then they would have one backstage for interviews, or right off actually it wouldn't even be a backstage, to be honest, everybody. It would literally be just like right off out of the main camera shot, up against a black curtain, basically. And back in the day, you could hear the fans still like going while interviews were happening. So there was no true separation like it is now. Now they've got like here's the interview room. This is where you go to interview for this. Here's this set for the locker room. Here's this set for this. Here's this set for that. And they're located in different places outside of the arena stage. So, but back in the day, it was literally like, hey, we have this warehouse. Let's put a ring in the middle of it and some bleachers, and bam, we got it. We got our thing. So I loved it. I appreciated this so much. So much. It was fantastic.
Oh, I loved it. Of course, Rapid Delivery Pete picks up the victory here, and everybody got free pizza. So that was the fun thing. Again, then the fever dream continued, because then we shoot backstage where we have Giuseppe Schiavelli Sr., a.k.a. Scott D'Amore, just in this very badly bleached blonde dye job, and the eyebrows were a mess, but I'm like... And then he was like the semi-Jersey accent. I'm like, boy, you're from Canada. Calm down.
I know. What's so funny about it?
Oh my gosh. Speaking of, we're going to talk about a certain Canadian that we loved in our main event. I was like, this is the most Canadian I have ever seen him this whole year. It is so stereotypical. It hurts, but it is so amazing.
Oh my God. It was fantastic. I was crying laughing.
Oh my goodness, but Giuseppe Schiavelli Sr. is just basically hyping up the rest of the show. And then he's also talking about how he's going to put Walter Chestnut in his place later in the evening, which we'll talk about that very, very soon. Which then, I loved it, which then leads into our first in-ring segment where we have your television champion, DJ Too Large. Cuts a promo out. Listen. DJ Too Large is being portrayed by Moose, and I forgot how much I love Moose's charisma as DJ Too Large.
It was so great because it was, because in the normal episodes he's so
serious.
He's so and he's so brutish. He was just like, "Rrr." But here he was just smooth.
You got the crowd to chant so many things. It's like, go DJ, go DJ, go DJ, go DJ, go.
And it was so funny. And that's what one of the first things I noticed about the whole evening was the whole Moose. I was like, how fun. I mean, he's so different. And that was what's so great about it, that his character was just so different than his actual Moose character. That I was so amazed by all of them. I was just so blown away by all of them because they took this and they just ran with it. And again, like I said, they were having fun, and that's really what got me excited, is that to watch them have fun made me have fun. So yeah, and Moose was great. I mean, Moose was great as his alternate character. DJ Too Large.
DJ Too Large is so fun. So DJ Too Large is cutting this promo in the ring, and then he is interrupted by the $36,900 man. Fun fact, the value of this number changes every single time they do this episode. It is so funny. It is ridiculous. But the $369,000 man tries to strike a business deal with DJ Too Large to buy the television championship off of DJ Too Large. And in the politest way possible, DJ Too Large tells him he can shove it. Which then leads to the reveal that the $369,000 man has a backup plan. And so there's going to be a match tonight for that title. And the $369,000 man has hired the newest signee to the IWFP, the Masked Brother. And I was just like, what is happening? And then the Masked Brother attacks DJ Too Large from behind, and then they get into a fight, and then they get separated, which sets up a match later in the evening between these two. I didn't know at first who was in the mask for the Masked Brother character. And then I was shocked when I heard, when we got that backstage promo of who, once I figured it out, I was like, oh my God, I think I just love this character even more. And I love the actual wrestler behind it even more too. But this was a fun setup, which then leads to another backstage segment where this time we see Walter Chestnut. basically talks about how the last time he was here and everything went wrong for him. His wife left him. His kid hates him. But he is here to put Giuseppe Schiavelli Sr. in his place. And with the help of his client, Neptune, which is basically Shira, with this like Party City Triton, which was so funny to see. They're basically going to put Giuseppe Schiavelli Sr. in his place. And I had to pause the screen because I'm looking at Neptune in the background. I was just like, wow, they went full 80s Aquaman. And I was just like, I'm parched. Where's my water?
Yes. Truly, thirst. The thirst was real.
And this is where it started. I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
This was the part of the evening I was just like, I try not to perpetuate the stereotypes that wrestling fans are horny, but...
They are. No,
but
it's not a stereotype. It's an actuality.
No. And if you've checked out our other reviews this week, we talked about that a lot, especially on AEW Dynamite, because that crowd was wild. But from here, this shoots back to the other side of this argument where we see Giuseppe Schiavelli Sr., a.k.a. Scott D'Amore, cut this promo with Frank the Butcher, a.k.a. Rhino.
God.
I was like, we're on the verge of like Hannibal Lecter status with Frank the Butcher, and I'm kind of here for it.
Yep. That was great. Oh my gosh.
So good.
Oh.
Normally, I don't like long talking promo segments to set up matches that are going to happen later. But I was like, you know what? I'm kind of here for it because it makes sense. And again, I'm like looking at my wrestling history. I'm like, yeah, I have to remember there was a lot of promo battles back in the 80s where but sometimes the majority of shows were nothing but talking head segments.
Yeah, there were. That's why I was telling you, like, there would be talking, and then suddenly someone throws a chair at you. I mean, it was literally like a lot of talk. I mean, it really, really was. And this kind of, again, this was very like, oh yeah, that tracks. Because that's pretty much what it was. It's like with the whole Moose and them, talking at the beginning, and then the masked brother comes out from behind him and just like attacks him. I mean, that's the way it was. It was like, we're doing a promo. Oh, I'm getting attacked. I mean, it was that sort of thing. I was like, yes, that's exactly how it would happen.
Yeah, which sets up the match later in the evening, which then leads to another backstage segment where we get a recap of the first official match for IWFP's newest signee, and then we get her first interview of the Red Letter, aka Jody Threat. Jody, I love this character so much, girl. I love that you just jumped into your first IWFP special and was full on selling this. The puns were corny, and I loved it so much. I'm like, Jody, you are one of my favorite peoples right now.
Yeah. So that's what was so funny about this stuff from the 80s. It was like, your wrestler, your characters are like the postman, the pizza delivery guy. I mean, it was just like these random characters. And now we look at it and go, really? But back then it was like, it was a big deal. You're like, oh my God, the postman, It's like, I'm gonna go postal on you, that sort of thing. I mean, it was great. I mean, they were super simplistic. There wasn't a lot of, like today's wrestlers are very, it's like their names are very thought out. And, back then it was just like, I'm gonna be called Paperclip. And I'm coming to clip you. I don't know, something stupid. I mean, it was literally, it's literally like, yeah, that. I mean, that's what it was. So it was very gimmicky. It's not so much gimmicky now. We still have gimmickiness in modern wrestling, but back then, everything was a gimmick. If you didn't have a gimmick, you wouldn't make it. You had to have something for the audience to latch onto. I love, and one of my favorite wrestlers from the time period was Jim Hacksaw Duggan. You know, he looked like a lumberjack, and he carried a 2x4 with him. You know, and he used that 2x4. It's like in wrestling matches, and that was his thing. He had that 2x4. He always had it. You know, and then there was Roddy Piper. You know, who always wore a kilt. You know, and he was very he was very stereotypically Scottish. He wasn't Scottish at all, but that's who his character was, and it was so fantastic. It was just that's what we got here. That's why I was very much enjoying this episode, because it was like, I remember these silly sort of character names and these like little backstage scenes that would happen. And it was fun. Yeah, and like we'll get to it, but there's a great moment that of something else that happened in the 80s, which we'll get to in a minute. But I'll talk about it in a minute. But but man, let me tell you, Jody Threat, fantastic. I loved everything she was doing. I'm like, yeah, girl, yay! It was so great to see her outside of her normal element.
Of just like being a badass and just being a badass while being a postal person, like a postal worker. It's As a side note, I feel like this could be a whole like special episode we could do talking about like 80s wrestling and like the culture of America and how it influenced that, because I feel that the status of US culture given any time period of wrestling influences like what happens, because like 80s was more camp, the 90s is like very aggressive and violent, the 2000s was like bubblegum pop era where we had lots of girls in skimpy clothing, and like everything was kind of a little misogynistic still, but like in that 2000 era. And then we get to the 2010s where everything started to be progressive, and then then we started to find wrestlers like be out and proud, because that wasn't necessarily a thing. But again, I can go on and on about it. We're going to make that a special in 2024. We're going to find a way to talk about it. It's going to be great. But the red letter does say something like she is the fastest delivery person on the planet, which then prompts Rapid Delivery Pete to interrupt and kind of get into an argument. And then he's like, man, I'm over this. And he leaves.
Yeah.
Rich Swann killed me here.
Oh my God, I know. He was great. He was so much fun in this episode. I mean, he really was. Oh, he was just having a great time. That's what was so wonderful about it. I just love that they were like not taking themselves seriously at all, and I love that.
It was so good. Speaking of things that were good too, we get our second match of the evening, which saw Neptune taking on Frank the Butcher. While the match was short, again, Frank the Butcher, I was like, there's no difference between Frank the Butcher and Rhino, and I live for it. I was like, there's no real difference, except Frank the Butcher is a little more Hannibal Lecter, like psychotic than Rhino is, where Rhino is just aggressive. Also, this match, I was just like, I wasn't paying attention to Rhino. I was like, hello, Neptune, how we doing?
I like your Neptunic nipples there, Mr. Mandy.
You're like, they're speaking to me.
They are. I mean, the very first time he came on, I was like, is it just me, or does he have exceptionally brown nipples? I couldn't take my eyes off of them. I literally was just like, I was hypnotized by his aqua nipples.
It was beautiful.
It really was. I was like, hello.
Again, the match was short, but it needed to be what it was. And because Frank the Butcher won, Giuseppe Scovelli Sr. officially gave Neptune and Walter Chestnut the jobs of IWFP janitors now.
And this crap happened in the 80s, guys. It really did. They were like, all right, you'd have them, and like, they would put them in these like ridiculous situations, like, here, you're going to be janitors now. And so you would see like the founder of the organization as a janitor or something ridiculous. It's like, and I loved it. They didn't take themselves seriously. I loved it.
I loved it. Speaking of, again, we said Frank the Butcher picks up the victory. Janitors are now roles there. But speaking of things that we don't take too seriously, this is where we got the promo segment leading into the match for the Hard Workers, which I forgot that this was the tag team name, and I was laughing so hard. So we got this little video package of them the Hard Workers horribly dancing to like some copyright-free song. But it was so much fun to see Diener and Jake Something in this light as the Hard Worker tag team. And we'll get to Jake in a little bit, because I was just like, hi, Jake.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. Well, I mean, we don't have to wait too long, because literally this leads into our tag team match where we have the Sunday Morning Express. Chris Sabin, I love you so much. I was just like, hey, I'm going to be writing this paper,
Here we are in the 80s again with problematic things.
Literally, Will messages me while we're watching this. Is like, why does the paperboy need to be African American? I was just like,
the boss is white, the paperboy is black. I was like, really?
Gosh, man.
But that was it. That was the 80s. That was it. I mean, we're not proud of that, but that's the way it was. It was. And funny thing is nobody had a problem with it. So, but I just thought, I went, oh, there's another problematic moment.
Like, it's such an interesting dynamic, because we're in 2023 watching them, but they're doing a spoof thing.
Yeah.
So parody is like,
absolutely.
One thing I will say, what I loved is that even though there was some echoing of problematic stuff, I was just like, Impact did a really good job of never crossing the line with a lot of the stuff that they did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the 80s federations did. I was just like, y'all crossed the line. Some of you even crashed through it. I was just like, but man, this promo from the Sunday Morning Express was hilarious. And then they get interrupted by the Chippendale-esque music and the Chippendale-esque tag team. I was like, before there was Thunder Down Under, ladies and gentlemen and non-binary folks, there were Chippendales. I am a child of the 90s, but I know what Chippendales were. I had a mom growing up. I was like,
Chippendales still exist.
Yep. I was like, Chippendales, Thunder from Down Under is the new one now. You had the Magic Mike movies.
Yep.
And then, listen, there's a whole plethora of other things, but the Hard Workers, which is the team of the spoofified version of Diener and Jake Something looks so freaking ridiculous, like in the best way possible, in like this top hat and nothing but like black pants and suspenders. Before we get into the match, Will, let's just lay it all out there on the floor. Like,
I'm sorry, but that man in those pants with just those suspenders, no shirt. Oh my Jesus. It gives me a tingling. That man is so fine. That man is so fine.
Oh my.
I mean, he is so fine. I'm not even gonna lie. He is just delicious. Oof. I mean, it was perfect. I mean, it was like, because he was like the pants for the khaki. They were, I can't remember the color of the pants. But they were like, I think they were khaki. But he had just the suspenders, and he had no shirt on. You could see the hair on his chest. Just like, I literally was just like, I just want to like touch you. That's all I want to do. Just want to rub my hands like that. Stand there. You ain't got to do anything. Just let me marvel. Let me act like a blind man and read your body with my fingers.
Great cheese all over those abs.
Yeah, serious. I'm just, whew. Oh, Lord. I couldn't concentrate. I was just like,
I had to take a moment for myself. I was like, all right, just get it out. Like, okay, all right, let's get back into it.
Yeah, I was like, ooh.
On the other side of things, though, I was also had to go join Diener. I was like, Diener, this wig is ridiculous. But it was so ridiculous. I loved it so much, though. So we get into this match, and honestly, from just a comedic standpoint, this was probably my favorite comedy match of the night. Because like Chris Sabin like took a move and he's laying on the floor, and then Jake and Diener's character like do like a robot shuffle, and they keep dancing in the middle, and then Chris Sabin's character just pops up and is just like, stop dancing, and then lays back down on the floor.
Yeah, it was so funny. Oh my god, it was so funny. Hilarious. And I think Jake something's character's name was Hard Harry.
Yes, I think so. I was like,
oh my god, you're more like Harry and Hard. But anyway, or Hard and Harry.
I mean, one of those words was applying to both of us in the moment.
Yeah.
For demonetization purposes, we're just gonna let you guess what that is, audience.
Yeah.
But Lord, this was so fun. Like, outside of me drooling over certain people, like, this was so fun. Like, again, it was just fun. I was upset that the hard workers lost, but, you know.
Yeah, me too. I was like, what? No. But I guess they couldn't.
I was like, sometimes the bad guy has to win, and Sunday Morning Express. By the way, Chris Sabin's character flaw of him like being afraid of heights and not wanting to jump off the top rope was hilarious to watch.
Yeah.
Because then he's like, I can't do this. And then Diener catches him with the boot.
Yep. That was funny. I was like, what? Oh, okay. Okay, that's funny. Okay, this whole thing was hilarious.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of things that were hilarious, we get like this kind of long backstage segment. So we get our introduction before their match to Rip Razor and Rusty Iron. Like Ace Austin and Gia Miller. I was like, hey, Gia. I was like, girl, I'm going to give you some flowers because you ruled this episode. Like, it was so good. But these two are walking up to a young Tommy Dreamer. I'm like, God, this wig is horrible, Tommy, but I'm here for it. Maybe it was his real hair. Who knows?
I was telling Mikey that this is the one that got me giggling. Is that I think it's so funny that everyone has all these like really funny alternate ego characters, and then Tommy Dreamer's is literally just young Tommy Dreamer. I was like, oh my sweet lord.
As one of the few wrestlers on the Impact roster that was active during the 80s for wrestling.
I know! That's what's so funny about it. I'm like, come on, man. Which I guess is kind of the irony, hilariousness of it. But
he was giving me Terry Funk vibes in this whole outfit. I was just like, okay, this makes sense because Tommy Dreamer has stated on many occasions he is a big fan of Terry Funk, and he knew Terry before he passed too, so it's just like, makes a lot of sense. But
totally.
Rusty Iron and Rip Razor were making fun of young Tommy Dreamer because he doesn't smoke, which is also a trope of 80s wrestling. Like, you guys slip the PSAs in there somehow, like stay in school, don't do drugs, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It was so funny. Which then, because, you know, Tommy Dreamer, young Tommy Dreamer, I should say, does not like being treated as such, leads into our next segment where he's walking out of the bathroom with a duffel bag. And the red letter comes up and it's like, young Tommy Dreamer, what are you doing? I took a dump in Rip Razor's like bag. And he's just like, because he crapped all over me, so I'm going to crap all over him. And then this was just like the comedy of errors because we didn't get a name, but Brian Myers' character is like, bro, why do you have my duffel bag? It's like, wait, this is your duffel bag? Like 80s Urkel style, like, oh no.
Oh my god, it was so funny.
So he opens it up. Brian Myers' character goes off screen for a little bit, and then in walks Shelton Jean's like lifeguard character. I was like, he's in flip flops and nothing but swimming trunks. He has like the whistle around his neck. The only thing he was missing was like the sunscreen underneath the eyes.
Yep.
That would have been hilarious. But he was like doing surfers, like, dude, this is totally tubular. You took a crap in his duffel bag, like righteous. Like,
God.
I was dying. And then we ended this segment. Brian Myers' character comes in, disgusted of what happened, and throws up over everybody, which was like colored Kool-Aid, but it was so good. And then, who was it? Yeah, it was. Then Giuseppe Scavelli Sr. walks in and is like, "You guys, this is freaking gross." And then the janitors come in to pick it up to end the bit.
Yeah, they're like, "Clean this up."
And then they do.
And this actually happened. This scenario that you see here actually happened in the 80s. I remember this. Yes. The throwing up, all of it. I mean, you saw all of this. This happened. I remember it. And that's why when it happened, I was like, this is vaguely familiar to me. Why is this? And I was like, oh my God. Because this has happened a couple of times. Maybe not the crapping in the duffel bag, but the vomiting on people, it happened. Like, for real. The crap in the duffel bag probably happened as
there
well.
Was bodily fluids, like projectiles, like from on occasion.
Yes.
I'm like,
and I'm just like, wow, okay. This was great.
Yes. This was the hardest. I was laughing this entire episode. I had to pause because I was crying. Like, there were tears coming down from my eyes. And I was so close to like video calling you just so you could see my crying laughter face. I was like, why are we not watching this together?
I know. Oh my God. Oh my God. This would have been a good one to watch together.
We're going to make it our mission for next year. They do this. I'm like, we're watching it together. I don't care.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. Oh, it's so funny.
This was such a fun segment. I was just like, it didn't lead into anything else that happened in the episode. But again, a lot of 80s wrestling doesn't necessarily have to.
Not at all.
It didn't have to. It was just a fun bit.
Yep.
Okay.
That's literally it. It was there just to show you something that happened backstage, and it would lead to nothing else. They would never touch it again. It would never come up again. Or if it did, it would be like, yeah, that one time you took a crap in my duffel bag, man. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, yeah, well, watch me take a crap on you right now. Shit like that. I mean, but it would be like years later. Like literally, like 2 years later, they're talking about when he crapped in his duffel bag. I mean, yeah, it was never like a progressive thing. It's like, okay, what do we do here tonight? It's going to affect this over here. No.
It was just a bit to do.
Literally, yeah, that's it. That's literally all it was. It was like a comedy show. I mean, it was like, when it wasn't comedy, but it was like, that sort of like a vaudevillian type setup where it was just these individual little skits here and there with some fighting in between, and it was super fun. And, people in the audience loved it. Let me tell you, when I went and saw, when WWF came to Houston to the Astrodome, my dad and I got tickets and we went, and we were down on ringside because he had connections and got some decent tickets. And it was so much fun because 80s fans and like 80s audiences were nuts. They were crazy. And I'm talking like, I think I was pretty damn young. I was maybe, God, when we saw that was, I think I was 15, 16 maybe younger than that. I can't remember, but there were younger people than me at these things. And let me tell you, these wrestling in the 80s, no one gave a shit. I mean, people were cussing and like hitting each other, and you're like pulling your kids out of the way so they don't get caught up in a mosh pit or something. I mean, it was crazy. And the wrestlers, I mean, I remember, and I want to say it was Dugan and Piper and oh God, now my brain's gonna leave me. I know Dugan and Piper were in. I can't remember the other two. It was a tag team, and I remember Piper picking up. I can't remember who it was. Whoever it was, they picked him up like over their shoulders and tossed them into the audience from the ring. It was like, and you had like big wrestler falling on you. It's like people. This is how crazy it was. If you were sitting ringside, you had to sign a waiver. You had to sign a waiver, like you will not hold us responsible if a wrestler's sweaty butt crack hits you in the face. I mean, things like that. Of course, I was like, bring it on. But like, yeah, they were literally like, we need you to sign this in case something bad happens. I was like, and my dad's like, yeah, he just signed both of our waivers. It's like, here we go. It's like, and of course, me being a man, I'm like, wait, we could die here? What? Yeah, it was fun. So this whole thing, this has brought back so many memories to me. This is great. So, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, continue.
I love this.
I'll sit here and reminisce forever.
We need to have a separate episode where you just tell us, like, I would love to hear from all the Biconic boys because we all grew up in different eras of wrestling, and I would love to get everyone's like perspective of like the different eras because I'm pretty sure we have pretty much the last 40 years all in the lineup, the 9 of us that we've got.
I would think so, yeah.
Man, this is giving me ideas for 2024, so stay tuned, y'all, because this is going to be good. Speaking of things being good, honestly, this next tag team match was probably my match of the night, just from character bits to actual in-ring performance. And okay, so first we get the team of Rip Razor and Rusty Iron, again being portrayed by Ace Austin, and backstage correspondent, might I add you, Gia Miller. Gia girl, I'm just putting it out there right now before we get into the match play-by-play. You are my MVP for the night, my MVP in this match, because I could tell you trained because Jordan Grace's character was throwing you all up and down the ring, but you also got some licks into. So, Again, Rip Razor, Rusty Iron making out before the match started was hilarious to watch. And then we get our introduction to the team they will be facing. First is Cowboy Colt McCoy, which is being portrayed by Eddie Edwards. This was so much fun to see Eddie in the silly role. Like, honestly.
Oh God, it was so much fun.
I was like, this Bostonian try to be a cowboy is hilarious. Because famously, Eddie Edwards is from the Boston area, and so watching him trying to be a cowboy was hilarious. But then the creme de la creme, the best character for me of the night, comes from Colt McCoy's tag team partner, all the way from Cobb County, Georgia Cobb, being portrayed by Jordan Grace, and just her aesthetic alone of just a t-shirt and some aviator sunglasses. I'm just like,
oh my God,
this is the best thing ever.
Oh, this was my night, my match of the night, because I have never laughed so hard like I did in this match. I thoroughly enjoyed this one, not just because of the fun humor, but because it was a decent match actually. And especially like when Gia was in the ring, I was just like, because I didn't know how that was gonna go down. I was like, ooh, because I only know Gia from backstage. Like, I was like, Gia, what are you doing? Oh God. And then she had some good moves. I was like, go Gia, hey girl. Not just a good interviewer, you're a pretty decent wrestler too. And of course, the two of them were so gross. They were so gross. And I loved it. There was that one moment where they were like making out in the corner. I was just like, ugh. It was because they were gross. It wasn't just like, hey, let me give you a kiss. They were macking on each other, and it was so nasty. And then, then Eddie playing the cowboy was hilarious. I mean, and of course, the minute they told me Jordan Grace's character's name, I was like, I'm here for it. Yeehaw, girl. Georgia Cobb. And I was like, that is fantastic. And this match was so fun. It was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I literally laughed from beginning to end. Just the sheer silliness of it was fantastic. Super fantastic.
I was smiling from beginning to end of this match. This is great. Colt McCoy and Georgia Cobb pick up the victory here, and then Colt being able to ride Georgia Cobb like a horse was hilarious at the end of this.
Yeah.
Eddie and everybody involved in this match was so good.
I just love it when Jordan Grace was like, and like turned
She's
around.
hit me.
I was like, is he about to jump on her back?
Yep.
And I was like, he did, and I was crying.
She was just like, let's just get this over with. I know you want this.
Oh my God, I was crying. Because it was like giddy up. All of a sudden, I was like, oh my God. It was so 80s. God, it was so 80s.
It was a beautiful thing. And it kind of continued into another beautiful thing because the Emmy, Oscar, whatever you want to goes to this promo that we got from the Masked Brother, a.k.a. Frankie Kazarian. I was just like, bro, I did not even know you had these chops, these acting chops, bro. Because he was like, let me tell you something, like a good old Southern boy. I was like, Frankie Kazarian, you grew up in California. Like, what happened? Like, this was amazingly great. I was so impressed.
I was too. Like I said, I didn't know who it was until this promo. I literally was like, who is this? And I was like, I have to look it up now. I cheated and I Googled it just so I could find out who it was. I was just like, oh my God, that's Frank Kazarian. I never would have guessed that. Never would have guessed it. I mean, because he had changed his whole like physical form, his voice. I mean, I had no clue that it was Frankie Kazarian. And this was such a great promo for, and I thought it was so funny because it was such a great promo for such a, basically a fake thing. And I was just like, I want to see you do this as Frankie Kazarian. That's like, because this was a really good promo. Like, really good. So I was very blown away by him. I thought, wow, I didn't realize he could do something like that. Like, I didn't think they portray their characters so well on Impact that I literally had no idea that he had such chops on him. I didn't. So well done there, sir. Well done. You got me.
This was great. And then it leads into an even great match too for the IFWP TV Championship. The Masked Brother taking on DJ Too Large. I love, first of all, at the beginning, the comedic factor of him horribly trying to hide the hammer in the boot.
Oh my God, that was so funny.
And I love that commentary just pointed it out. They're like, oh my gosh, he's going to cheat with that hammer in his boot. They're doing and of course, Professor Poindexter is just like, he's doing a horrible job at trying to hide it. I was like, thank you, Alex Shelley. I love a straight man character.
So funny.
This is what I expected. Just comedy spots like go DJ, go chants we're breaking out ever so often. The Masked Brother ends up picking the victory here and is your new IWFP television champion to the shaboos of everybody in the building, which was also great. This was just a fun match. I love seeing Frankie Kazarian be this dark, broody character and just Moose being this charismatic, like DJ Too Large, not totally a ripoff of Run DMC, but I'm kind of here for it.
Yeah.
I loved this so much. This was fun.
Loved it.
Okay. I have to prepare myself because I also cried laughing before this match began. So we get to our main event where we get a recap that there's like a world's tournament going on in the Federation. And then we get backstory too. And this is literally Impact's version of like a horribly summarized version of Rocky 2. Because literally we have the all-American, in this case, the all-Canadian hero taking on the Cold War, like, coldness of his opponent. And we had the death of Muscle McGee, apparently. And this is when I was like, bro, we have a whole backstory to this match. I was like, what is happening?
It was so funny. I was like, at first I was like, oh, okay. I thought Muscle McGee was just defeated, but he was like killed. At first I did not realize that he had been like basically murdered. So I was like, so they were talking about it and they're like, oh, for the sad passing of Muscle McGee. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, oh my God, the dude killed him? I was like, but this is so it, though. This is so very 1980s. I mean, it really was. That they would... This is one of the great things about, I will say this about 80s wrestling, is they would kill characters off. I mean, it was like a soap opera. I mean, it was literally like a soap opera. It's like you'd be fighting with someone, and the next thing you know, it's like they'll talk about how you were like they found him, dead in the back parking lot or something because of this, that, or whatever. And it's like, and they would literally kill a character off, and then the performer would have a whole new character that would just come in, and you're just like, wait, what? I'm like, wait a minute. But oh yeah, this is so 80s. This is so 80s wrestling.
So
and I love it.
Before we even get into the match, we get this. This was the other person. I had to pause my television screen. I was like, I'd never been turned on more by flannel in my life. I was like, so we get this promo from our all-Canadian hero, Tim Burr. I was like, I forgot that's Josh Alexander's character name for this, and I was like, yeah, this fits him. Put him in flannel because listen, Josh Alexander is a tall man. Like that. Yeah. That man is hella tall. The only thing that was missing is like the lumberjack like hat too. I was just like, we were just missing the hat, but honestly, him being literally Mr. Clean as a lumberjack was great.
And like a blue ox, and he could have been Paul Bunyan.
Seriously, because he's wearing red flannel too. Mm-hmm. But he cuts his promo. This is like he's trying to be Rocky, the all-American hero. I'm like, sir, we are in Canada. You are Canadian. Like, you are the all-Canadian hero.
Oh my God.
What killed me was the fact that he went full on Canadian. I was like, oh my gosh, Josh.
He did it. He went full on Canadian. It was great. Tell us about it.
About it. I could not stop laughing, Will, when this was happening. I was just like, gosh dang it, Josh. I'm like, you, sir, this is why I love you as an in-ring performer in terms of wrestling. But I was like, the man has comedic chops. I was like, yes.
He does. I agree. He was fun. He was so funny.
And then it got even better because the absurdity. Because then Tim Burr enters the ring, and then out comes Boris Alexeyev, which is like the most stereotypical Russian name you could think of. But what made it even funnier is that this cold Russian wrestling character was being portrayed by freaking Santino of all people.
Yeah, I know. It cracked me up because it took me a little while. I didn't realize who it was at first. And then I didn't realize who it was until right before the match started when he came out. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, is that Santino? Sure. I was like, no, surely is that? And as he got closer, and and there was that moment right before they began where they had a close up on him, and then he like kind of looked towards the camera, and then that's when I was like, oh my God, it is him. Oh. Which is just fantastic. Just fantastic. Because it's like, only in the 80s can you get away with like cultural appropriation and
seriously
pretending. Look, I'm a Russian, but not really. I'm from Des Moines,
like Des Moines, Idaho, or something.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. So funny.
It was so fun to see, like, because everyone was playing more funnier, amped up versions of their normal selves. And then Santino had the opposite job because he's normally the funny comic character. Yeah. And then he has to be so stereotypically serious in this role. It was cool. I was laughing just because I was just like the dichotomy between Josh having to camp it up versus Santino having to camp it down.
Yeah. It was so funny. The juxtaposition was great.
The match itself was so fun to watch just because it was just funny. Soviet Union is getting booed out the building. Oh,
yeah. Oh, my God.
Like, the audience did not happen with it.
Nope.
And at first I kind of got disappointed, but I was also intrigued, like when Tim Burr like ripped off his flannel. I'm like, oh, he's wearing an undershirt. Damn it.
Yeah, I know. I did. I was like,
oh man. It's like, damn it. Yo, Tim Burr picks up the victory. He avenges Muscles McGee. And this episode ends with the whole entire locker room coming out to celebrate like an 80s style wrestling. And this episode of the IWFP comes to an end as the show goes off the air. Will, I think we're just going to skip grading because it's really hard to grade this like we normally do, because I was like, I had a good time. That's my rating scale. I had a good time.
10 out of 10.
Yes, I had a good time. This was a palate cleanser. Like, again, just like we talked about with the UK show and the Turning Point pay-per-view, it was so fun to see the Impact crew like be so refreshed to be in the UK and not have to have the pressure of building towards a major pay-per-view, because this was just fun for everyone involved. And again, Impact does a really good job of balancing out like what we normally see from the week-to-week shows. And then they just do things just because it's fun. Honestly, it feels like Impact would be a fun place to work at, honestly. I was like, we get to wrestle and we get to do silly stuff along the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I had a good time. Will had a good time. That's our rating scale for this.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, before I do the outros for the week, just to give a heads up to our audience, next week technically is the go-home show before Final Resolution. Now, they announced over social media that next week's Impact episode is going to be the episode in which they filmed when they went down to Mexico a couple of weeks ago, and they had a joint show with AAA, which makes me excited. If you do not know, AAA is a big Lucha Libre Federation company in the heart of Mexico, and it specializes basically in Lucha Libre, luchador-style wrestling. So you're going to be seeing a lot of our Impact favorites cross paths with the big Lucha Libre stars, both male and female, in there. Which, of course, I'm interested to see how we build that show into Final Resolution, which is like 2 days later.
Right.
Honestly, I don't care. Lucha Libre is one of my favorite styles of wrestling, and I'm so excited to see which AAA stars that they worked with for that show. It's going to be so much fun. But to Will, unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of this week's Table for Doom plus You review. But fear not, we'll be back next week to cover the special Impact AAA crossover show, as well as give our predictions for Final Resolution. I'm so excited. This is going to be great. But if you like this review, you can check other Table for Two plus You reviews, as well as all the other reviews here at the Biconics YouTube Wrestling Podcast channel. Follow us all over the socials at bcwrestlepod to get notifications of when said reviews go live. To check out all the out of context clips where it ranges from our takes on wrestling as well as us ogling all the wrestlers. I'm gonna be honest, we're the Biconics. Like, Google what that means. Like, honestly. And then, of course, make sure to subscribe to the actual Biconics Wrestling Podcast, where all podcasts can be found, where we're like this, but more unhinged and a lot more hornier, apparently, from what people are telling us. That's our staple. We give our critiques, and and wrestling makes us horny, baby, in the words of Austin Powers.
Indeed, the thirst is real.
The thirst is real. But from myself, for Will, and the rest of the Biconics boys, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, stay Biconic, you beautiful bastards. Until the next review, we'll see you later. But until then, ta-ta for now.